Don't know, but he has connections to NASA. His wife works there.
So you don't know if Feeney was instrumental in helping them get that particular contract. Okay, you said that they were downloading stuff from NASA software?
Yang Enterprises was bringing gigabytes of databases from NASA, and then they were handing it over to Henry Nee.
Who is Henry Nee?
Henry Nee was a little skinny Chinese guy that worked there, and he wasn't legal.
He was an illegal alien?
Mm-hmm.
Even while I was looking into the story, we then discovered the matter of Henry Nee.
They finally arrested him for sending missile chips to China.
Henry Nee was in fact arrested after a 4-year sting last year on 3 counts of attempting to send Hellfire anti-tank missile chips to China.
And he admitted to doing it 20 times.
And he pled guilty to one of the charges and admitted it was a slow year, so they only did this 10 to 20 times. And when he was sentenced in October of 2004, he was sentenced to 3 years probation and a $100 fine.
Pretty weak, huh? He seems to think he's pretty much promised a green card as soon as he's done with his probation.
To this day, Mrs. Yang, I understand, says that Henry Nee never worked at Yang Enterprises, Inc.
It's one of the reasons you can prove that he was working on the project was the fact that they actually billed for him.
They're sending timesheets to you saying, here's who worked on what and how many hours they worked and so forth.
Correct.
One of them was Clint Curtis.
One of them was Clint Curtis.
One of them was Henry Nee.
One of them was Henry Nee.
She was regularly shipping information off to her brother in China.
She, Mrs. Yang,
Mrs.
the
Yang.
CEO. Okay.
Right.
Who was her brother in China?
Her brother, according to her, she got drunk one time and she was happy, and she was telling me about her brother had been thrown out of the country for spying. Of course, she said he didn't do it, but he'd been tossed for spying, and then she's doing all this correspondence. She said it was video games, and I asked her, should you really be shipping all this stuff to your brother, since we have NASA contracts, and the government thinks he's a spy? If you got every environmental group, every group you have, just say, we're not going to do anything else. We're going to make the vote system, and we're going to fix it. And you could fix it in 2 months. But you've got to abandon everything else for those months and not save the whales and not do anything else, but fix that problem. Because if you don't fix that problem, nothing else you want to do will matter.
Thank you. I am pleased to follow that liar, Clint Curtis. In case anybody missed it this morning, Clint Curtis passed a lie detector test, and it ran in this morning's St. Petersburg Times.
Did you have any concerns about taking the polygraph test?
No. I've been trying to for quite a while, but the opportunity came along for someone who is supposedly, top of the line.
Right.
Big career with Florida Department of Law Enforcement, so it's a good time to do it.
What'd they ask you? Do you remember?
They basically were trying to validate the affidavit that I gave to Congress.
The lie detector test that Clint Curtis took was administered by Tim Robinson, who used to be the chief polygraph examiner for the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. Clint Curtis was found to be truthful in all of his responses. Congressman Tom Feeney has yet to take his polygraph exam.
You have a serious problem because you want your candidate to win, and you don't want the election to be rigged. But as it stands right now, we don't have a clue as to whether or not our elections will be rigged.
Hari Hursty was invited by election supervisor Ion Sancho to test the Diebold AccuVote optical scan voting machine in Leon County, Florida. Clint Curtis said that the program was never used. As far as he knows, it was a proof of concept. Is there anything about his concept then?
From the touchscreen systems, all touchscreen systems out there, it's impossible for me to say if actually you can do it with all the machines. Definitely you can do it with the Diebold, both Diebold platforms.
And the presumption here being that nobody gets to look at the source code.
Well, in Diebold, I would say I would build it so that you cannot find it from source code even if somebody looks it. And that's, I wouldn't go to that area.
Can it be built? Well, I don't know if he's a good enough programmer to do it. Could it be done that you can actually hide it in the source code so that it cannot be done?
Yeah.
Found?
Yeah.
Black box voting facilitated a number of hacking demonstrations. Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney was able to witness the vulnerability of a Diebold central tabulator firsthand.
With 3 clicks of a mouse and some instructions from those who know how to do this, I was able to hack into the Microsoft program that tabulates the votes, change the election vote, and then exit from the program. Now, I saw it, I did it, and so then that means that I kind of know that it can be done.
Clint called me and told me that he had resigned from Yang.
Why were you resigning in the first place?
Because they're crooked. And if they're ethically challenged, I don't want to be there.
I gave him a listing of firms that we did business with and told him if he were made available through an existing contract, I would then be able to contract with him.
So you went to the Florida Department of Transportation after you left Yang Enterprises,
Yes.
correct? Yang had like an $8 million contract, right, with FDOT?
And they found out I was working there, and they just went ballistic. They started calling all over the place, and I needed to call them as soon as possible.
Who called you?
Mike Cohen.
So Yang is now calling you after you went to work at FDOT?
Right. They were all in the room talking. I could hear them mumbling in the background, and Mike was basically the voice coming out of this.
Why are they calling you?
They want to offer me big money to come back at first, And then when it got to the point of, well, Feeney will find you a different job and we'll give you this $1 million anyway, it's like, why?
They offered you $1 million.
They offered me $1 million just to leave Tallahassee.
And why didn't you take that?
Because that's not right.
Why isn't it right? Is there anything illegal about?
Well, if you're
they're offering you a job, it's $1 million. How much were you making when you worked at Yang before?
$60,000.
$60,000.
Yeah.
And now they're offering you $1 million.
Now offering me $1 million. That's quite a price increase if there's not something illegal going on.
Are they still looking for someone? Because I could
Yang?
use some.
Oh,
yeah.
could you use?
Yeah,
some
I mean, if it's $1 million,
you don't have to show up for the job either.
I'll
You have
leave
to come in.
Tallahassee.
Well,
It's
yeah.
not a problem. He told you and others
In the office?
in the
Oh, yeah.
office about this phone call he received from Yang where they offered him.
It was an ungodly amount of money.
What did he tell you the offer was for?
To leave DOT and keep his mouth shut.
So I start talking to Mike
Cohen.
personally, Mike Cohen,
The executive
on the phone
secretary.
at night, and trying to find out what's going on, And basically he told me what was going on, They had illegal aliens working there, Henry was a spy. They were ripping off FDOT, the whole routine. And it turned from, bribes to, we're going to have Ralph come kill you kind of stuff.
Whoa, what do you mean we're going to have Ralph come kill you? Who's
Ralph's a sniper. Ralph was a sniper.
Now, this
in
is
Vietnam.
Ralph Thompson, the guy you said was the VP at one time?
The VP, right.
Mike Cohen says to you that Ralph is going to come kill you?
Well, actually, he says Ralph used to be a sniper. You'd never even see it coming. But, Ralph is now 60. You might have been a great sniper when you're 20.
Okay.
But, crawling through the woods when you're 60 is not quite the same.
Don't taunt Ralph.
Don't taunt Ralph?
No, this is being taped. Yeah. You got enough problems. Certainly you go to the police. Somebody has just told
So
you.
then I go through the books. I have to have some sort of evidence because otherwise...
What books do you go
telling you
through? What are
nothing.
you talking about?
Well, since I worked in the same department where the billing had come in,
Okay.
I started looking through the contract, and they had been overbilling for me for years. And they were billing like 40 hours a week for forever.
Were you working 40 hours a week in
No,
the Yang contract?
not at all, not even close. Working on the NASA contracts and the ExxonMobil contracts.
But you were working 40-hour weeks, essentially? Mm-hmm. And all of that time was being billed to Yang, even though you were not doing all of your
Right.
work for FDOT?
They even billed for a couple of days after I had left them and was working at FDOT. So I told Mavis Georgalis, and she said, well, we need to go to the Attorney General's office.
You and Mavis Georgalis together?
Yes. She went up with me and told the story, and I told my part of it.
And the Inspector General was whom?
Ray Lemme.
What complaints were made with Raymond Lemme?
Improper invoicing on the part of Yang Enterprises. Improper political influence.
Because of
coming
Tom?
down from Tom Feeney
I see.
through my immediate supervisor, Nelson Hill, on behalf of Yang Enterprises, and the use by Yang Enterprises of unauthorized